So we wanted to start off today just by asking you kind of a big picture kind of question and talk about Exodus in general as we're coming out of Genesis. What are your feelings towards the main tensions and maybe lingering questions that the original readers might have been wrestling with as we get into Exodus? And then also, what do you feel like the role of the book of Exodus is? What role does it play in the Torah? I guess in other words, what's the purpose of the book? And then finally, maybe you can give us a sense of the flow of the book, the high points, kind of a general outline.
Sure. So I think the first thing to say is that there's this really significant moment in Genesis where God makes a covenant with Abraham, promises that he'll have many descendants and that he'll be a blessing to all nations and that they'll own the land, that they'll take possession of the land of Canaan. But the book of Genesis ends with the people having moved down to Egypt. The family of Abraham is now in Egypt because of the famine in Canaan. And so there's this sense of something's not right. God said he'd give them Canaan. That hasn't happened yet. The tension between Joseph and his brothers have been resolved. And so they're kind of like safe for now in Egypt and finding food. But there's this sense they don't belong here and they need to get out. And that sets us up for the book of Exodus, which starts with the word "and" in Hebrew. The first word of Exodus is, "and these are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt with Jacob." And then it gives a list of the 12 sons of Jacob. And I think the first thing that I was struck by as I studied chapter 1 is the way that Joseph's solution to the problem of the famine in Egypt actually created the conditions which allowed for the oppression of the Hebrews in Exodus. And so the giving over to Pharaoh of all the land and then all the labor of the people actually sets us up for the exploitation that happens in Exodus, which just to me illustrates the importance of having godly leadership, ethical leadership, because if we don't have leaders who are committed to providing for human flourishing, then exploitation happens instead. And so the book opens with the people having multiplied and become numerous. Lots of echoes of Genesis 1, where God says to be fruitful and multiply, and that's happening in Exodus chapter 1, but rather than subduing the earth, they're being subdued by other people, which was never God's intention. So the book of Exodus opens with a major problem, the oppression of the Israelites, and we watch through the book as God sets them free from Pharaoh. And I think sometimes people assume that this is the book about liberation, just kind of now you can go do whatever you want with your life. But actually, Exodus, one of the key themes of the book is that they're going from serving Pharaoh to serving Yahweh. So rather than ushering them into freedom, they're actually experiencing a change in master. They're going from Pharaoh to Yahweh, and the purpose of coming out of Egypt is to have the freedom to worship and serve Yahweh. And we find over and over again that he is a radically different master than Pharaoh was, that he creates the conditions for human flourishing, and that he invites his people into the vocation of representing him among the nations. So the book of Exodus unfolds the identity of the people of Israel and their vocation as his representatives. And it ends, of course, at Sinai. The second half of the book is at Sinai with the giving of the law and the building of the tabernacle so that the presence of God can come down from the mountain. It's like God moves into the neighborhood and travels forward with the people from Sinai. So the presence of God is a huge theme in the book. The revelation of God's name, his power, his superiority to Pharaoh and the gods of Egypt, his goodness in distinction from other ancient Near Eastern cultures and contexts. And all of that, I mean, it's such a rich study because there are so many contextual, cultural, historical factors that make God amazing in Exodus. But then there's all these linguistic and literary design factors. Like Exodus is a very well told story. And so there's all sorts of brilliant literary strategies. And then these key theological themes emerge along the way. So it's just a rich feast for anyone who wants to slow down and take the time to read it well.